Hey guys, what's going on? Victor Chambers here, back with another video. I wanted to make this quick video, maybe quick, hopefully quick, to talk about something that I hear and see discussed quite a bit, question I see get asked quite a bit, and it's specifically about whether, as a notary loan signing agent, you should incorporate your business as an LLC, or whether or not you should remain a sole proprietor. And really, it comes down to a couple things. Well, more than a couple things, but I'll just name a couple. Really, it comes down to how exactly you want to mitigate your business liability or your business risk versus your personal risk and personal liability. So that's one thing. The second thing is ultimately your tax strategy and what tax strategy you want to employ. That can be influenced by a lot of things: your personal finances, perhaps other businesses you might have, your family situation, if you have a W-2, a lot of things could play into that. But ultimately, how you want to manage your tax strategy is another thing, and how you pay yourself exactly is part of that. I'll give a caveat: I'm not a CPA, I'm not an accountant, I'm not an attorney. So this information is just purely my perspective. It's not advice per se, and I'm definitely not providing any sort of legal advice here. I'm just providing you with some perspective. So firstly, as a sole proprietor, you're basically running your business as an individual. You're an individual, you're an unincorporated business. Okay, so by default, unless you form an LLC, you are running your business as a sole proprietor. With a sole proprietorship, there's nothing, you don't have what's called a corporate veil, which means as a sole proprietor, you're responsible for everything that happens in your business. That means if your business owes someone money, you're actually personally liable. If your business makes some sort of mistake or gets into some sort of legal issue, you are personally liable as a sole proprietor. So all the liabilities associated with the business as a sole proprietor are actually associated with you personally. And for tax purposes, you and your business are pretty much one and the same entity. And obviously you're considered self-employed, so you'll not only have to pay self-employment tax, you'll also have to pay ordinary income tax as well. So that's a little bit about a sole proprietor. Now let's talk a little bit about an LLC, because this is where things get a lot more interesting. Now, a lot of people would say, oh, you should form an LLC, you should incorporate this, that, and the third, but they don't really go into a lot of detail about why. And I would definitely encourage you to do your research. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail about whether or not you should incorporate yourself as an LLC. I'm just going to point out a few things here in this video. Forming an LLC specifically requires a lot more thought and many more considerations. So with an LLC, you can form a single member LLC, or you can form a multi-member LLC. A single member LLC means that it's just you. A multi-member LLC means exactly what it says. It's you and maybe one or two or three other people. Maybe it's your husband or your wife, or a spouse, or your kids, or your cousin, or Pookie, Ray Ray, whoever could make up the membership or the members of your multi-member LLC. Again, if it's a single member, that means it's just you. And you have to understand that, especially if you have a multi-member LLC, you're going to need what's called an operating agreement. An operating agreement basically defines who owns what percentage of what of the company. It defines how the company operates, and just certain protocols and many things like that. Again, I won't get into a whole lot of detail on that. The great thing about an LLC is that as an LLC, you are a limited liability company. That means you personally have limited liability for anything that happens with the business. And basically, as a LLC, you have a corporate veil, essentially. So the debts of the business are the debts of the business. You're not personally liable for them. If someone were to sue the business, you, for the most part, are protected as an individual when you have an LLC. And speaking of credit, the LLC also gives you the ability to establish business credit on that LLC. Again, this video is not about business credit. I won't get into that. My man Jerron Akeem talks quite a bit about that. I would definitely recommend following him and checking out his channel. Now, one thing that I don't hear talked about a lot with LLCs, and specifically single member LLCs, is that as a single member LLC, you're basically taxed like a sole proprietor, because a single member LLC is what's called a disregarded entity. With a multi-member LLC, you're essentially taxed as a partnership. Also with an LLC, you have the option to elect to be taxed as an S-Corp. Now, this is where a lot of people say that you can save money on taxes by being taxed as an S-Corp. And essentially the way it works is that when you elect to be taxed as an S-Corp, you become not only the owner of the business, but you become an employee of the business, and you also become salaried by the business. And only your salary as an employee and owner of the business is subject to self-employment tax. Now, this is especially important why you should contact an accountant and a CPA and potentially an attorney to understand the nuances of the S-Corp election, because the S-Corp election filings are certainly more complicated. And ultimately, a CPA or accountant will help you understand if the savings from a tax perspective would be worth actually making the election and all the additional paperwork involved with the S-Corp election. Now, to wrap this up and give a few final tips about sole proprietor versus a limited liability company, my first thing would be to absolutely, as I said in the beginning of this video, that you need to consult a professional. If that means an attorney, a CPA, an accountant, someone that can help you dissect your specific personal situation and help you understand which entity structure and if incorporating actually makes sense for you. Now, the second tip is that once you figure all of that out, you absolutely need to reserve a name for your business. And you can simply do that by going to your Secretary of State website, or whoever manages business entities for your state, and they should provide you with how to check to see if the name that you want to register is already taken, and provide you with the tools on their site to allow you to actually register that business name. You definitely want to make sure that the name you're deciding on is not already taken by some other business. So once you determine that the name is not taken, then you can proceed with actually registering that name and incorporating the business. Another thing that you can also do is to register an alternate name, or in some places it's called a fictitious name, or a DBA, which means doing business as, which you could use to maybe leverage other ways of marketing your business. For example, if the actual name of your business, the registered name, is 123 Notary Solutions, you might have a DBA for that LLC called Victor Signs Documents, and use Victor Signs Documents as a fictitious name, and use that to actually market yourself or put on your business cards or whatever. It just gives you a little more flexibility. The third tip is to absolutely obtain an EIN. Now, if you're a sole proprietor, you don't need to worry about necessarily registering a name, although you can, I believe, register a fictitious name as a sole proprietor. Either way, you're going to need an EIN. Especially if you're a sole proprietor, because when you're signing up with signing services and things like that, you don't want to provide them with your social. You don't want to have that information hanging out there. You want to use an EIN as a sole proprietor, and then definitely as an LLC, you absolutely need an EIN. So once you have your EIN, you can open up the various bank accounts you might want to open up. You guys have seen videos I've done on this. I recommend Bank Novo. They're great, especially for if you're just getting started and you want to open up your first business account. And then once you open up that account, you can go and open other accounts, maybe at larger institutions or larger banks, once you actually have revenue coming in. But I highly recommend Bank Novo. I started with Bank Novo, and I'm still using Bank Novo, and I like them a lot. And then lastly, you have your bank account set up. You're actually doing signings, you have money coming in. You actually need to manage your books. So you can connect your bank accounts to software like Xero, or I use QuickBooks personally to help you actually manage your books. If you have a sufficient amount of funds coming in, you can hire a bookkeeper, or QuickBooks has a service you can use and pay monthly that will help you set up QuickBooks and actually manage your account. But you definitely want to stay on top of your books. This is important because whether you decide to do quarterly tax filings or end-of-year tax filings, you want to understand the profit and the loss for your business. You want to understand your revenue versus your expenses. And software like QuickBooks will certainly help you look at that and have a consolidated view with all the reporting it provides and all of that stuff. So you definitely want to stay on top of managing your books. Once you actually start making money, come tax time, it will make your life so much easier. Again, you can file taxes on a quarterly basis or yearly basis. It's really up to you. A lot of people would recommend you do it on a quarterly basis, but again, it's up to you. But you definitely need to stay on top of your books and manage your books. So I hope you found all of this information useful. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you'll be notified when I upload brand new content. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.